All right, welcome everybody. Give us just one moment here while we get all of our technical bleeps and bloops all figured out here. We get everything shared into our group. So hang on one second. We're going to get kicked off right at 1 o'clock. So we have about a couple of moments here to finish up some housekeeping. Stand by, please. One more second. All right, we're almost there. 10 more seconds, everybody. If you could let me know how the audio is. I'm using some new technology today, and the audio's been giving me a bit of a hard time, and I've got some construction happening right outside the office building here. Can anybody let me know how the audio is? If you can let me know if you can hear me okay. Let's see. I think that will be okay. Okay. All right, I think we're there. Hey, Oliver, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Oliver, all the way from Germany, let me know that the audio is okay in Germany. So as long as it's all right in Europe, I think we're good. Okay, good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. So let me start the recording. Okay, fantastic. All right, welcome everybody. Master Toby Milroy here again, Vice President for AMS, and thanks again so much for taking the time out of your day to work on your business rather than just working in your business. And I think I say this almost every time, but it is a critical habit to develop, right? We want to make sure that we take time and spend time being strategic, right? It's far, far, far too easy for us to get busy being busy, right? And we forget to be busy being productive. So, it's an important habit to build, right? To make sure that we always are focusing on the big picture. And I call it the blank legal pad strategy, right? You guys have heard me talk about this before. I like at least once a week to sit down with a blank legal pad and draw out almost like a map. What should the business be? What should it look like, right? Not what does it look like today, but what should this thing be, right? And then the same for the week. But anyway, so hopefully that's useful for you. So anyway, let's see here. We're using some new technology today. So hopefully you'll be able to see everything appropriately and hear everything appropriately. So we're off to the races on that stuff. So today we're talking about the low-cost marketing plan that just 2 years ago, obviously pre-COVID, generated almost 1,750 leads and almost a little more than 50 enrollments in just one location. Over the holiday season, over the Halloween season, over the October season. And the marketing plan today is going to encompass the entire month of October, not just the week or two, leading up to Halloween. We have several promotions and several activities that we like to do, before that, right? So that's our topic for today. We're going to spend about an hour together. If you do have any questions about anything, please feel free to pop a comment in the comment section. Oliver has already, helped to contribute to that. And I'll keep an eye on that, and as we have time today, we'll address those questions or issues that you might have over there. And then if I can't get to them, during our presentation, I'll take some time afterwards and respond to you directly. So that is that. So next, again, as typical today, I'm happy to send you a copy of the slides, so you don't have to furiously try to write down everything on all the slides. If you just drop your email address or just leave a comment below, send me the slides, put your email address in there. I'll have my team look back at this when we're finished and send a copy of the slides to you. I'd rather you be more thoughtful and make notes about implementation and about what you're thinking rather than just trying to furiously copying down slides. So I'm happy to send those over to you if you like. Next, help us if you wouldn't mind. It'd do me a big favor if you could help us sort of spread the word, right? I know, post-COVID, a lot of schools are still struggling. Many schools are setting new records, which I'm very excited about. But a lot of schools are still struggling, to kind of recover from COVID and get back to a sense of normalcy and a sense of effectiveness, right, in their marketing and in their growing their martial arts school. So, if you have colleagues that you work with, if you compete with school operators, or like in tournaments or something like that, or you have people in your organization, feel free to share this video and tag them in the comments and stuff like that. It'll really help us sort of spread the word and get more people, up to speed, and really help us sort of grow the industry, right? And if you know me for any amount of time, Oliver, I think we've known each other for a couple of decades, maybe something like that, at least a decade or so. My mission is to help grow the industry, and I don't, how we accomplish that is going to be one school operator at a time, right? Helping each and every individual school operator grow their individual location, attract more new students, serve their students at a higher level. So if there's anybody that you think would benefit from this, feel free to share this video here or tag them in the comments, and we'll try to get them engaged as well. Also, before we jump into our topic, keep in mind that at atlasmartialartssoftware.com/COVID-19, I still have that huge COVID toolkit, and I actually don't have this graphic updated. We now have more than 300 free resources for any school at any phase of dealing with the COVID crisis, all the way from, in the very early days, keeping the school open, to transitioning to closing the school, to transitioning to virtual lessons, to transitioning to reopening, to the safety precautions and the other types of activities that you're taking to make sure that it's a safe place to train, all the way back to even now Delta variant, right? So there's over 300, this is an old graphic, but there's over 300 different tools on there that you can use to help engage your students, get your students back on track, get your students training safely and productively, right? So go to atlasmartialartssoftware.com/COVID-19, and you can download all those tools completely free, no obligation whatsoever. All of the graphics and everything that we've produced is all done in like Google Slides and Google Documents, so you don't even need to have like expensive graphics editing software or anything like that. You can just go right in there and change things that you might want to change. So take a look at that. I'm really happy that resource is still very popular. We get lots of downloads every day. And I'm really excited to be able to help anybody who might need it. So atlasmartialartssoftware.com/COVID-19. Go check it out. So again, today we're going to be focused mostly on grassroots marketing, and what I mean by that is we're mostly going to be focused on non-paid marketing, right? We're mostly going to be focused on marketing that we can do on a shoestring or a very little budget. I think maybe two things that we're going to talk about today. You might have to buy something, right? But mostly it's collateral for the marketing purpose itself. But other than that, this is a very low cost marketing strategy, set of marketing strategies that you can deploy for October. Okay, so let's jump in. You may have seen this graphic before, but I think it's important for us to review a couple of key components, a couple of key paradigm. One of the things I think that's important is your role in your martial arts school. If you're the operator, if you're the owner of the operation, your role is that of CEO, not necessarily that of like chief cook and bottle washer. And what I mean by that is this: in the martial arts, we get sort of indoctrinated into the sort of master-student relationship, right? And sort of top-down, everything must flow. Does that make sense? All too many organizations, all too many operations have this central paradigm that if the idea isn't the school owner's idea, then it's a bad idea, right? All of your ideas are good and everybody else's ideas suck, right? Well, I mean, that's sort of like old school, ineffective leadership from the top down, right? What I really want in my schools and what I really want in my businesses, and certainly here at AMS, is an idea meritocracy, right? Where every idea stands on its own merits, regardless of where it came from. If it's the janitor, right? He just came by and emptied all the trash, right? If the janitor has a great idea to help our product improve, or to help serve our customers at a better level, or to help the working environment, be better for our team members. If he's got a great idea, I want that idea to be able to bubble up and get its due attention, right? Weaker leaders tend to feel threatened by other people thinking, right? Weaker leaders tend to feel territorial about making decisions, right? Now, oftentimes you'll find that your ideas are better because you have more experience and a better view of the world, right? But our mission is to help our juniors have those experiences as well, so that their ideas get better, so that their input becomes more and more valuable over time. Does that make sense? So my point is this: the reason I wanted to take a moment to discuss that is that more than even the granular tactics that we're going to talk about today, right? We're going to talk about the specific marketing activities that we did, in 19 to get really good results. And many, many years, prior. October is a big month for us. October and November are really big months for us. December becomes a big cash month for us, a big revenue month. But October, November are big marketing months for us. More so than any of the specific things, how did we do this? How did we do that? More so than that, what I really want to make sure that you take away from today is the strategy, right? Because once you have the belief system and the strategy right, it's easy to go fill in the blanks. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have or any confusion that you might have. I'm thrilled to help you with any of those things, right? As much as we need to. But I think what's more important for us to do as a group is make sure that you have the right concept, right? And then any little question that you have along the way becomes easy to fill in the blanks, becomes easy to solve once you've got the machine working correctly. Does that make sense? So that's sort of the concept for today. So we'll review this concept. The marketing matrix that we've talked about before is marketing falls sort of on a spectrum. And on the far left-hand side of the spectrum, you have low cost, but typically high labor, right? Meaning usually if you're not buying media, so on the right side, you have high cost, low labor, right? So on the right side, if you look at something like buying television commercials or buying radio spots or buying clicks on Google or buying clicks on Facebook or whatever the case might be, buying eyeballs, that doesn't take much work, right? You send them some money, you approve the artwork, and you're off to the races, right? Doesn't take much work, but it tends to be much more expensive, right? And Facebook right now is all over the ice, right? Many of our clients are getting wonderful low-cost results on Facebook. And in some areas around the country, not, right? So, again, it's a matter of sort of labor versus money, right? So if something is relatively low labor, then typically it tends to be relatively high cost, and vice versa. There are many, many, many things that are very low cost, but I tend to have to sweat a little bit. I tend to have some sweat equity, right, to make it happen. And I think we all understand that intrinsically, right, and sort of intuitively. But there's one other component to the matrix. It's not just a spectrum; it's a matrix. It's four. It's a multi-combination. The other factor here is the factor of leverage, right? Meaning, let's talk about low cost, high labor for a moment. Low leverage, right? Meaning you're sort of 1-to-1, right? Lots of schools still today. And I support it if it's something that you find effective. We like to do the VIP thing, right? We stand out on the corner with a clipboard and we survey people as they come by, right? Or we stand at a gas station and talk to people about martial arts lessons while they're filling up their car, right? Things like that. Like that's relatively low leverage, meaning that it's 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 or 3, 1 to small groups, right? High leverage is when it's 1-to-many, right? And usually high leverage means you're buying media. Television reaches a lot of people, right? Certainly used to. Radio reaches a lot of people, or at least used to, right? Social reaches a lot of people, right? So it's 1-to-many. And what we want to do for today's purposes and the paradigm that I'd like you to really be thoughtful about and really to help develop in your school is this idea of living in this upper left quadrant. Spending a lot of time there anyway. Not exclusively. You certainly have other things happening as well. But the more I can focus on low cost but high leverage activity is pretty important, pretty sexy, right? This means I'm now getting in front of, instead of 1 or 2 people at a time, I'm getting in front of dozens or hundreds of people at a time, right? And that's really something that that you'll find yourself then drinking from a fire hose, right? You'll find yourself surrounding yourself with more opportunity than you know what to do with, right? Too many school operators that we work with here at AMS, when we start the relationship with them, if they're coming from, another billing company perhaps, or if they're coming from another software entity, or if they're coming from, just not using anything to manage their school at all, what we find is they tend to only generate a few leads a month, if any, and they're only doing a couple 2-3 enrollments a month. And this type of concept can really change the paradigm for them, can really change the world. Because now what we'll end up doing today is flooding a school like that with dozens, hundreds, or even more than 1,000 leads, prospective customers, all within in a few weeks, right? And so we have to be prepared for that. We have to make sure our back-end systems are ready to handle that volume, right? But what a world change that is, right? When you're used to doing 2 or 3 enrollments a month, and now all of a sudden you can do 28 or 30 or 35. Wow, right? Like that's game changer level stuff. So this high leverage, low cost, but high labor quadrant is where we're going to spend almost all of our time today. Does that make sense? So leverage is something you want to be conscious of. You really want to be thoughtful about how you can extract high leverage in all these scenarios, right? Now, when I build marketing plans for our schools, and nowadays I don't have to do it myself. Our team gets together and they do it. But there's sort of 4 boxes to check off, right? Internal marketing versus external, and then traditional versus digital, right? So internal obviously are like internal referral systems. This is leveraging the current student body in some way, whether it's the students or the families or the parents or whatever the case is. This is sort of an internal promotion, something that's sort of designed for inside the school, right? The people who are already here, to get them to help leverage your marketing. External obviously is reaching out to the external market, right? And then obviously traditional versus digital. Traditional would be, printing things, right? Print media, radio, television, flyers, ad cards, rack cards, door hangers, things like that. Versus digital, meaning mostly online, right? And you'll see as we talk through today that digital now is always a component of every single thing that we do, right? But this is sort of how I like my team to think about the world. And then we also think about our marketing plan like this. Number 1, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but it's so important that we need to reinforce it. We're always thinking about the Parthenon rather than the diving board, right? And I'm sure you've heard me talk about this before, but it's worth the 2 minutes it'll take to discuss it. The Parthenon in Greece is standing over, a couple 3,000 years or whatever it is, not because it has one really strong pillar that holds up the roof, but that it has many, right? And all too many martial arts schools and all too many small businesses in general tend to fall into a trap. When they find one marketing avenue that tends to work okay, they then tend to sort of solely depend upon that. And that's, a recipe for death, right? Any one marketing avenue that you're solely dependent on is just, you're setting your business up for failure, because what if something happens to that channel? Right now you're dead in the water, right? So the concept here is we want to have many things contributing to the strength of our school, not just 1 or 2, right? We want to have many. So just as a general rule, I always want to plan for the worst case scenario generates 20 new enrollments in each location each month. And what I mean by worst case scenario is I have my team and I estimate each and every marketing activity that we plan for the month with a low and a high, right? What would the low expected result be? What would the high expected result be? So the low expected result would be, if it barely works and we get a very anemic response, what would that look like for leads and enrollments? And if we got a great response, what would that look like for leads and enrollments, right? And then the next key to this is that you always have to plan that some of those activities are going to goose egg on you. Some of them are going to be 0. Right? So I like to have that range, a realistic range, a realistic minimum, a realistic high range. And then my minimum range has to add up to at least 20 enrollments a month. Plus I throw in the chaos monkey, right? Plus I take a couple of the activities and I say, well, what if they're zeros, right? Because you have to plan that something bad is going to happen. You have to plan that, something just may not work right. I have a good example from many years ago. When I was more dependent upon fewer numbers of marketing channels, one of the marketing channels that I used a fair bit was television. And we would buy television commercials, television ads, television spots. And we would also be on long form wherever we could. But I remember we made a big ad buy, and usually you're buying for, weekly for a month or something like that, whatever the term of your contract is. And we had a small big ad buy because there was a movie coming out, a martial arts movie coming out, and we wanted to make sure that we were all over the place, and we wanted to have a big influx because of this thing. And I made the fundamental mistake was we put a lot of eggs in that basket, and we had the ad buy done, paid a bunch of money, $8,000-9,000, and we were going to buy all these spots within this 3 or 4 day period of time. And then within that 3 or 4 day period of time, there was a tragic event in the country, right? And I'm going to wave my hand at the actual event itself, but a huge news story happened. Nobody was paying attention to our commercials, right? Nobody was thinking about calling to ask about martial arts lessons from the commercial. No, people weren't thinking about going to the website to investigate martial arts lessons because this huge thing happened in the country, right? So things can happen like that. Hurricanes can happen in Florida. Hurricane can happen in Louisiana. Floods can happen in New York. Forest fires can happen in California. And it makes your ad buy go to, right? Makes your ad buy just tank, right? So again, the point is you have to plan on some of these being zeros, right? So expected low, expected high, a couple of them are going to be nothing, right? Make sure that you're planning for 20 a month, whatever that number is for your school, right? Number next is we always have to have, my team always has to have at least 2 internal marketing activities every month. So that's 2 internal events or activities that should stimulate referrals, right, of some type. Whether it's a buddy event or a referral contest or whatever the case is, we have to be doing at least 2 things every month to be able to at least, at minimum, 2 of them every month to make our sort of tick box. And then at least 2 external activities, same deal, right? That we can expect to generate, a fair number of leads and enrollments. And again, this is the minimum, right? Minimum, we have to tick off 2 external and 2 internals. Does that make sense? Forgive me, my allergies are really kicking down here right now, so my sinuses are congested. So at minimum, 2 internal, 2 external, right? We also always and we do not count any of our evergreen stuff. So if we have Facebook ads running, that doesn't count. When we have Google ads running, that doesn't count. When we have newspaper running, or when we have radio running, that doesn't count, right? None of that stuff counts. And if we have any of these other extraneous things, they don't count either. So we want to be doing it at least have those tick boxes checked off, and then we start building from there. Does that make sense? Number next is we always want to be focused on knowing that and identifying that almost all lead generation activity will lead to digital at some point anyway, right? Will lead to the website, will lead to a lead funnel of some type, right? So we're always planning for and prepared for driving traffic to our sites, right? Making sure that the sites are ready, the lead generation mechanisms are set up appropriately, et cetera, right? So we always want to be thoughtful about that. And we're always thoughtful about building our database, about building leads, building contact information and things like that, so that we have this big, robust database so that when we do internal events, when we do internal marketing activities, we have a database. We have people that we can invite. We have people that we can communicate with. And then also number 7 is hugely robust and substantial and focused follow-up systems, right? Both online and offline. When we generate a new lead, this is a valuable entity, right? So we have to make sure that we're prepared for that. We have to make sure that we have our back-end systems in place. Make sense? So again, if you do have any questions as we go, feel free to pop comments in there. Davis, hey, thank you, sir. Mark, hey, thank you, sir. Anybody that has any questions or comments, feel free to pop a question in there or any comment you like in there, and I'll make sure I try to get to it. So, making sense? So number next is this, and again, you've heard me talk about this before, very likely. We're talking about grassroots community marketing a fair bit today, and the overall arching principle, once again, is how do I get in front of the herd, right? Where do I find the salmon that are running, right? Where do I find the stream that has all the salmon running through it? And I've used the analogy over the years where there's sort of like 2 types of bears in the woods, right? And you have one bear who, he's a little timid and afraid, and he doesn't like to get his feet wet, and he stands, fearfully on the shore and hopes that a fish might swim by, right? But then you have this guy, right, who just is fearless, and he tromps out into the middle of the stream and he snatches up all the salmon he wants to eat, right? That's who you want to be. You want to find where the salmon are running, right? You want to find the herd, find the big herd of your customers, your prospective customers, your ideal customers, and go get in front of them. Does that make sense? So this is like critically important. Conceptually and as a paradigm, you always want to be looking for those opportunities, right? I'm going to welcome Kyle Tyson here. He just popped on, and I wanted to say hello. Hey, sir, how are you? Right? Anyway, sorry about that. I wanted to say hello to Kyle. Does that make sense? So you want to be this guy. You want to be out in the middle of the stream, and you want to, find abundance, right? Find the people, the big groups of people that you're looking for. We're going to readdress that again. So 4 fundamental big activities, 4 fundamental categories of activities that we did to generate those 1,750, almost 42, I think, 50 something leads. Number 1, we did a bunch of internal Halloween focused and other focused events and promotions. Number 2, we did a bunch of external business-to-business collaboration events, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Number 3, we did a bunch of external community events, and we're going to talk a lot about that. And number 4, we drove everything through our online funnel and made sure that our conversion systems were up to par, ready to maximize that opportunity, right? And again, let me go back. And again, don't freak out and worry about having to jot the slides down. If you want a copy of the slides, just pop your email address or put a comment in the comment section. Put your email in there, and I'll have my team, monitor that, and they'll send you a copy of the slides by PDF, a couple hours from now when I get everything converted over. Okay, so don't worry about having to scribble everything down furiously. So, number 1, internal Halloween events and promotions. The first Halloween event and promotion that we execute is the Kicktoberfest promotion. This is a clever concept that one of the marketing guys came up with. I thought it was kind of clever. Essentially, this is just, some schools do it for a month long, some do it for a week or 2 weeks. This is basically a referral event. It's a buddy week, right? So Kicktoberfest is the Kicktoberfest challenge, right? Where we get everybody training, right? We get all of our students' friends, coming into the school and training, and we do all sorts of different kind of fun and clever activities and things like that over the weeks. So whether it's one day a couple of days we'll do like pumpkin decorating contest, and a couple of days we'll do where they all can wear their costume to the school, or whatever the case might be, right? So I don't think we should get into that granular of detail. I'm happy to. If you have comments or questions, pop it in there, and I'm happy to expand as we go through our time today or even afterwards. But just get the concept first. Is we're going to take the entire month of October, and we're going to plan a series of really cool, fun internal activities where students can bring their friends. We do a referral this is part of a referral contest, etc. Right? So number 1 number 1.5, I guess, the Kicktoberfest buddy month or buddy week, or however you want to execute it. What we find is that having lots of cool activities that the friends can participate in is very useful. We also find it very useful when we frame them in a leadership sense, where the student sort of becomes the mentor, right? And brings the friend in so that they have like a student to teach, right? So lots of options and opportunity there. Again, not too granular today. Happy to answer questions, but just get the general concept. We're going to take October and we're going to make it a big referral month, right? We're going to spend a lot of time and activity and energy getting a lot of friends in. And Halloween presents wonderful opportunities to do that. Number next is internal trunk or treat, right? I'm sure that you guys are looking at this and focused on this and have done these things before. Halloween, even without the virus, this trunk or treat thing has become very popular with parents that are maybe a little nervous about sending their kids out in the neighborhood or whatever the case might be. And it's really been great. It's really been successful and popular. We'll do one internally. I'll let you make decisions about which activities you're going to consider, but just consider this. I'm looking for the biggest bang for my buck. I'm looking for high leverage, right? So if I can do the trunk or treat in my parking lot in front of my martial arts school, and I can get all the other local businesses in the shopping center to help collaborate, and we can have 50 or 100 cars out there, pardon me, and we can promote that to our database. We can promote that on the radio. We can promote that, pardon me, by social media. This is great, right? This can be a high leverage activity. This can bring not only all my friends, all my students, but I want them to bring all of their friends and them to bring all of their families, et cetera, right? So this is a big opportunity to collaborate with businesses and to have a really nice event for your students and for their friends, right? So we'll discuss more of that as we move forward. And then the number 3 internal activity that we executed, and this was big for us, was the Halloween party parents' night out, right? And I'm sure you guys have done many of these things before. I'm not going to bore you with any of those kind of granular details, but parents love Halloween too, right? And if you give them an excuse and an opportunity to go out, right, and have an evening to themselves, they're going to love that. So lots of schools use like Parents' Night Out as a revenue generator, a revenue source. Wonderful. You can charge $40, $50, $60, something like that, maybe more, for the evening. They come in on a Friday evening or a Saturday evening or something like that. This week, this year, Halloween is on a Sunday. So we're considering doing 2 of these, a Friday and a Saturday, right? We're still kind of thinking about executing how we're going to execute that, but no reason not to, right? Gives parents a chance to go out and have an evening to themselves. Many schools use it as a revenue generator. Like I said, I like to use it as a revenue generator and a referral mechanism. So this could be things like all sorts of incentives if they bring a friend, right? All sorts of discounts if they bring a friend. Some schools like to do, it's $50 to come to the Ninja Night or to the Parents' Night Out. It's only $25 a piece if you bring a friend, or it's $50 to come to the Parents' Night Out. It's free if you bring a friend, or whatever the case might be. So think about how you'd like to do that, and we have all sorts of tools for you on this in the MA Biz Academy. We'll talk about that here in just a moment as well. But does that make sense? And it's also very useful if you have activities that they're excited about, right? Whether it's, a dodgeball contest, or if it's a costume party or pumpkin decorating or whatever the case might be, great opportunity to really drive a lot of traffic into the school. And again, as I described a minute ago, one of the things that we're really focused on with our Atlas Martial Arts software clients is not only helping them with the strategy, but also giving them the tools they need to execute that strategy. And you'll see on here, there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, there's 10 here, but there's like another, 10 or something like that. Halloween promotions, Halloween internal promotions and external promotions inside of Atlas Martial Arts software that you can work with. Let me see if I can show you really quickly here. Okay, so here's Atlas Martial Arts software, and right here on our dashboard is the MA Biz Academy widget. And some of the Halloween stuff, the new stuff pops up here like almost every day. But some of the Halloween stuff is up here already. And if you pop over to the Biz Academy, you go directly from there to the Biz Academy. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there's 11 separate promotions. And inside of each of those, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 7 or 10, something like that, individual strategies for those promotions that you can be executing inside the school. And in this case, we're talking about how to create a cool, fun atmosphere inside the school to get referrals to happen, right? To get a lot of friends coming into the school, etc. So take a look at that. If you're not yet using Atlas Martial Arts software, go to atlasmartialsoftware.com or try atlassoftware.com, fill in the form, have our team walk you through all this. It's super valuable and important, right? And I really want more school operators to take advantage of this. There's no reason to be struggling right now, right? There's no reason to be, I know COVID is tough. I know some states are still struggling with crazy lockdowns and things like that, but really we're seeing record numbers in all sorts of places all over the country. So, it's go time, right? It's go time. So anyway, please check that out. I'd love for you to take advantage of that. Again, a pumpkin decorating or carving thing can be a mechanism. We also have done for you really nice looking emails for your students, for prospects, for your database, et cetera, for all of these types of things that are very, very useful. Again, I'm building the database. I'm executing against the database, right? Okay, so make sense? Now, last but not least, and I think actually it's not quite last, but it's close, the Kick or Treat promotion. every year I do this. I will probably do this every year for the rest of our school's lives, right? For the rest of their lives, and hopefully their children and their children and their children still do it too. This is the Kick or Treat promotion. And I'm sure you've done this before. I'm sure this is not new, but it's definitely, I consider it a staple, right, in the martial arts school. So this is every year. We're going to take, we have these Kick or Treat cards printed up, these little ad cards, or they come in various sizes. They're like this, and they're like this size. They come in all sorts of different sizes and different configurations. We'll talk a little bit about that. But these are basically each one of your students, it's an internal promotion again, each one of your students who go to their house on Halloween are going to have somewhere between 0 and maybe 50 or 100 other kids, other families who come to the door, knock on the door, and ask, trick or treat, right? And so what a wonderful flyer distribution opportunity that is, right? So we print these things up, these Kick or Treat cards, and we tell all of our students about it, and we give each student a stack of maybe 100 of them. And the instructions are, anybody that comes to the door for trick or treat, whatever you're going to give them for trick or treat, drop that in the bag and drop one of these in there as well. And we have a bunch of kitschy versions of this. We have 10 out of 10 dentists prefer martial arts over candy anyway. How to lose the extra couple of pounds you got by stealing all your kids' candy. All sorts of different versions of this thing. So don't get hung up on that too much. But the concept is still the concept. And it's just an every year thing. You can print these things. You can get 5,000 of these for something on the order of $200 and $240, something like that. So it's just something that should be a staple, something that you just do every year, right? There's just no reason not to. It's such a high leverage activity. And there are all sorts of variants of these things. We've experimented with these impact mailers where we hand the cards out and it has the little tear off card thingy, which is kind of cool. And we've experimented with a bunch of different versions of these, but I can't find a big statistical difference, unfortunately, yet. But it's just something that I'm always going to be executing, right? Every year we're going to inform parents about it a couple of weeks ahead of time, and we're going to give them all the cards, give them as many cards as they want, and they can hand them out on that trick-or-treat evening. So it's sort of one of those, again, staples I like to use. Does that make sense? So again, any questions or comments, feel free to pop them in the chat area. I'm watching now. Looks like Mark is, DeMaio is here too. That's very cool. Good to see you guys. Thank you very much. Oliver looks like he's hanging in there. So, make sense? So those are internal promotions. Those were, 5, I think, so far. So let's look at next. Just because Halloween is at the end of the month doesn't mean that's the only thing happening this month. And just because Halloween tends to be a more kid-focused holiday doesn't mean that we don't have also some adult angles that we should be pursuing. October is also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we have a full-fledged campaign for you to help you execute a breast cancer awareness promotion in your school. And this, again, can be like a kick-a-thon or a walk or however you want to kind of structure that. But the concept for me is this is sort of an adult through kids promotion, right? Where we have, I'm really focused on getting the adults engaged in this. I'm focused on getting the families, the parents of my students engaged in this pretty deeply. And I also help get engaged all of our business-to-business partners. So all of the local businesses in the same shopping center. Building business-to-business partnerships is a critical skill to develop. We're not talking about that today, but executing against it today is definitely useful. The local banks and coffee shops and, shopping centers and Target and Walmart and Publix, these types of things. These are wonderful opportunities to collaborate with those folks and can often get you leverage to do things that you might not be able to do otherwise. So, for example, we'll get to it later, but for example, let's not use an example. We'll get to that example later. But this gives you an opportunity to do something altruistic, but also that can really get people engaged in your community and what you're doing. Okay? So, very useful there. And then last, again but not least, we don't want to forget adults, like I said. And for me, I execute that breast cancer awareness promotion as sort of an adult promotion, but we also have several other adult promotions that you should be thinking about. We have some self-defense things to be thinking about. We use the fear and scary themes of Halloween, right, to help sort of have kitschy and fun marketing messages for that market over time. So be thoughtful about that. We'll do some internal women's self-defense seminars. We'll do some external things like that as well to sort of play on that fear, scary, theme and make it kind of a fun thing, right, for people. Does that make sense? Okay. So again, that will sort of conclude the internal promotions that we'll talk about today. So any questions about internal promotions, feel free to pop a comment in there and I'll take a peek. Now let's talk about external. Okay. Once again, forgive my allergies for a moment. So we're going to talk about some external promotions, how to work with business-to-business partners at their location, elementary schools, daycare centers, things like that. External, outside the four walls of the school. But first, let's talk about strategy. There are 5 levels of engagement for any external marketing activity, internal as well, but external marketing activity. Level number 1 is showing up, right? So imagine there's like a children's expo or an elementary school or something like that that you want to have a presence at. The first mission is to be there, right? To have some presence there, whether it's physically you or you're operating in the CEO role and you have a team of people who can be there, whichever. But it's just kind of being there is level 1. Level 2 is distributing information, right? So handing out flyers or handing out rack cards or putting flyers on cars or whatever the case might be, right? So, showing up, distributing information is good. It's okay, but it's the least effective of the 5 levels. And unfortunately, in our industry, it's the thing that most people stop at, right? Most school operators in our niche kind of go this far and then they stop, right? They get to I'm going to hand out, they have a children's expo or they have a carnival or a flea market or a festival or something like that, and they go and do a demo and they hand out flyers. And they think that should turn into something. Many times it does not. Most times it does not, right? Because think about what that flyer has to go through to get action taken on it, right? But instead, we should be more thoughtful about these things. We want to be executing these things to a higher degree. So let's look at 3, 4, and 5. So number 1, show up. Number 2, distribute information. Number 3, generate or collect a lead. In some way, exchange information, basically. In some way, get the contact information. Get them to say yes to something, right? Whether it's a free report or a free document or free child ID kit or whatever the case might be. The concept here is to make sure that you're generating a lead, that you're walking away from the engagement with an ability to follow up with somebody, with an ability to talk to them later, with an ability to, in some way engage with them without depending on them calling you, right? So, for example, one of the cool parts about the smart card concept, the enrollment card, we'll talk about that in a little bit. One of the cool components of it is that the back of it is there's usually 2 of them. It's typically like this, right? Like like a big business card, and you tear the bottom part off, right? They get this part, you keep this part, and this part is where they've written their information, right? So same with these guys, same with these types of tear-offs. We build these so that the back of the tear-off, they've filled in their information, right? They get the offer, we get the data, and then we have an ability to follow up with them, right? So number 3 is generating a lead. We've covered this before, so I'm going to be brief. Number 4 is set an intro appointment. So after I've generated a lead, I then want to move them to, have you ever thought about doing martial arts lessons? And we have a free course available that be a good fit for Johnny. And Tuesday is the first class. Do you have time at 4 o'clock on Tuesday, 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock on Tuesday, right? Things like that, right? So number 4 is setting an appointment. Number 5 is actually making a sale, getting them to actually buy something, which again in the enrollment card concept. Oh, here it is. In the enrollment card concept, the e-card concept, the concept here is that they're making either a donation or they're actually buying something. They're actually kind of buying that trial or buying something for a gift or something. And then again, you get the data and they get the extra thing, right? So again, as we've described it many times in the past, this booth model, the spin wheel booth model, the raffle model, those types of things solve all of these problems, right? So we'll walk through a little bit of that as we go today. Make sense? Again, any questions, pop them in over there, okay? I'm keeping an eye on it, right? So if you do any questions about that, let me know. So the number one piece of this paradigm, the next piece of the paradigm, is we're looking for external community events, places where we can go engage high leverage, right? Engage large groups of customers, large groups of people who might be good customers. So number one is you want to be a pillar in your community, right? If you're going to pretend to be a pillar in the community, you better be one, right? Meaning there are all sorts of activities that we want to be part of. We want to know the local business owners. We want to be part of that community so that when it's time to engage in it, it makes sense, right? So the question to ask is, who else has a large group of your prospective customers, right? We talk about this almost every time we talk about marketing plans. How do we find the herd, find the salmon, right? Just as we described earlier today. Well, right now in this season, there's a bunch of places. And a couple that have been really, really successful for us are things like the little local pumpkin patches. Almost all the little churches and daycare centers and youth ministries and things like that, almost all of them will have something like this. Costume shops where over the period of 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weekends right before Halloween, there'll be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people who all go, to the spirit store and shop there, or they go to the local party supply store and get costumes and things like that, right? Haunted houses have been really big for us in many, many, many locations. So we'll talk about how to engage in that. And other community events, whether it's fall festivals or car shows or whatever the case might be, these are things that you really want to be thoughtful about. What do we do when we get there? What do we do? How do we engage with them? How do we interact with them, right? Well, lots of different concepts. We'll talk about a few here. Number one is the sort of co-promotion, the B2B co-promotion. So let's think about something like the pumpkin patches. I like to do a lot of them. I would rather be there and set up my booth. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. But sometimes I can't. Sometimes I don't have the manpower. I don't have enough teams. I don't have enough, activity, whatever it might be. So how else can we interact with them? Well, one methodology is this joint venture opportunity, this idea, right? This idea where they become an affiliate of the martial arts school, right? So I give them this guy. I give them these guys, right? I give them the cards, right? And I tell them, listen, here's what we can do. You're selling pumpkins here as a fundraiser for the local church, for the youth activities at the church here. I totally get that. I would love to contribute, right? Let me contribute. And maybe I just write them a check, right? I'd love to contribute to that. One way that I can really help to contribute is, as you guys sell your pumpkins here, if you can just, sort of execute this little promotion for me, I'll put your affiliate code on the bottom of all these cards. I'll put your initials. And anybody who brings this back to our martial arts school and enrolls in any of our programs, I'll donate to you guys $200, right? And maybe even the employee, the volunteer, the person who's volunteering here to sell pumpkins for you on a Saturday or on the weekend, I'll give them $50 or $100, right? Does that sound like that would be useful? Right? So things like that. There's all sorts of ways to collaborate on those types of things. If you've heard this before and I'm boring you, I apologize. But this is so effective, so efficient, and really helps dig deep roots in the community that you just don't want to miss it, right? These are my favorite types of things to do because I'm engaging with people in meaningful ways that help build a huge network. Does that make sense? So one concept is here. You can become an affiliate, hand these things out with your pumpkins. Anybody who comes in, I'll make a donation, right? I usually give them a 2-line script, right? I'll even go in and train the staff if I have to. I'll go get the staff together and teach them how to do this. And here's how I would present it. After you've completed your business, right? After they've bought their pumpkins, right? They've given you money, you've made change, they're done. The transaction is finished. Just take my card and hold it up like this when you're getting ready to hand them back the receipt and say, hey, have you ever heard of XYZ Karate? No matter what they say, the next line is, oh, well, listen, they're doing great work over there with kids and families. You might want to check them out. And just drop this in the bag or hand it to them with the receipt, right? That's all. That's all you have to do, right? And then anybody that brings this back, I'll donate back to you guys, right? That kind of a thing. That's one concept. Another concept is if we can have the team ready to do it, if we can have enough teams to do it, we'll do the little spin wheel booth model right there at the pumpkin patch, right? And in the 1,700 leads I've been talking about today, we were able to do that in a couple of locations where we would send a team there and we would do our booth model, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about. If you haven't, put booth model in the comments and I'll do a whole thing on how to execute the booth model. But we'll send a team out there and we'll basically generate a lead from everybody who walks through the place that day, right? They all win something. They all fill out the form in order to spin the wheel to win something. And we get almost everybody to do it, right? So those are a couple of options that you can execute. Another option to execute, or sort of the fall fundraiser concepts like the breast cancer awareness thing, or pick any other charity, there are other entities like pumpkin patches, like costume shops, grocery stores, Walmart, Targets, things like that, that have a big influx of people, let's say on a weekend, right? And oftentimes those types of businesses don't want other commercial businesses doing booths in front of their business and stuff like that. But if you're raising money, if you're raising funds for a charity, it gives you an opportunity to oftentimes make that work, right? So again, enter the e-card, the enrollment card promotion, right? So these are people are making a donation. They're making a $10.99 donation or a $9.99 donation or whatever it is to, the House of Hope, or to the Breast Cancer Awareness Foundation, or whatever the case might be, and then they're getting 4 weeks of lessons plus a free uniform, and they just fill the form out, right? That kind of a thing, right? So again, several different ways to sort of leverage that. Does that make sense? Once you master that booth model and the raffle model and the fundraiser model, you can apply these all over the place, and it's really a game changer. Does that make sense? So again, as I described, you've got those as options. Okay. Now, next is elementary schools, churches, daycare centers, etc. Outside of the pumpkin patch concept, the safety tools concept, and then their other activities. So their trunk or treats, their fall festivals, and all that. Those are kind of my favorite. I'd kind of rather go do their things than do my own thing, depending on what the numbers look like, right? But so again, one of the things that we execute a lot is we print these Halloween safety tips, bookmarkers and flyers and cards about this size, things like this, things like that the schools can hand them out as safety reminders for the students. Or in this case, in 19, we were also able to execute a flyer drop that had all this sort of Halloween safety information. We paid for the printing. We printed up all the collateral, gave it to the schools, and they put them in the take-home folders for Thursday or Friday, right? That kind of thing. So all sorts of those types of opportunities to collaborate with them, right? Many elementary schools have fall festivals and things like that. Kyle asked a wonderful question. Kyle, let me get to that in 1 second, okay? This is a great question. So safety tools, safety information, things like that is very useful. In general, though, the idea there is that you're building reasons to interact with elementary schools. If they have a festival or a carnival, you can do your booth model there. If they have a music event or something like that, you can put the booth there. If they would allow you to distribute the safety information, print the safety information, right? That kind of thing, right? So you get the idea. So let's pause and let me try this. Oh, it worked. Oh, good. My scene selector worked. Kyle just asked a really interesting question in chat, and everybody give Kyle a like, because that's like a really good question. Kyle is suffering from a challenge that all of us do, all of us. And I'm glad that you articulated it. Kyle, I am not picking on you, I promise. But I'm glad you articulated it the way you did. Here's what Kyle said. Kyle said, right now, I only have just me. Kyle says, okay. It's okay to pick on him. Kyle says, I have just me and one other person at this time. I need to be able to do this on my own. How do I accomplish this? Okay, here's the deal. Two things. I don't know your specific circumstances. So just take that as a given, right? Understand that I don't fully understand your circumstances. But you want to be in the team building business. You want to be in the CEO business as much as you possibly can. Sometimes you just have no alternative and you got to do stuff yourself. Sometimes that's the deal, right? And you just got to do it, right? But for me personally, I had a huge transition in philosophy and thinking about this exact problem. I was the chief cook and bottle washer in the school, right? I had to do everything. I took care of the inventory. I took care of ordering everything. I had to do everything, right? And one of the biggest keys to getting my schools to a place where they were far more successful was when I had to figure out how to stop doing that. And I had to figure out how to start developing people. So here's what I mean. Right now, if you looked at any of the locations, I don't, actively have to do this part of it, but we have teams, leadership team members, and their parents and families who volunteer to do all sorts of this stuff for us, right? They believe in our mission in the school. We created a school advisory council where we recruited a bunch of parents and families that were, members of the school, and they are now part of the school advisory council. They help us promote the school. They help us grow our organization. In each of the locations we do this, right? So now we'll have, let's say, a teenage leadership team member, their mom or dad, and maybe like an aunt or an uncle or something like that, right? And a couple of other students that will go to a pumpkin patch on a weekend and man the booth all day long. A different team will go to a haunted house and man the booth all day long, right? And then what I do, and what now some of the senior instructors, senior school operators in my organization will do too, is they will now go like jump between locations, and we'll go film like, what's a good example? Sacred Heart Christian Academy is right is a location very close to one of my schools, and we do a thing every year with them at their pumpkin patch. And so what I'll do is I'll go down, me meaning other people too. We'll go down and we'll watch what they're doing and look at how they've executed the booth. Look at where they set it up. Are they bottlenecking traffic appropriately? Are they moving people through the booth well? And we'll like video record it, and we'll like send it to the other locations and say, look at what they're doing at Sacred Heart. Look, do that, right? Look at what they're doing over here, right? So what my role is, what your role needs to evolve to be, is to be the facilitator for improving all these systems every day, right? So if you can put together 5 of your most loyal students, right? The 5 black belts that have been with you for 15 years, right? The 5 green belts that just love you, right? That love everything that you're doing, and speak to the parents, help get them engaged in the process. You can much more easily than you might be thinking. I don't know you very well. I don't think I know you actually, but much more easily than you might be thinking, you can put together teams of people. My mission, my objective in each of our locations is I want to be able to have 5 different things going on a given weekend and be able to facilitate that. Some schools I can't, some schools I can, right? But my goal is 5. I want 5 teams, right? And I want to build those 5 teams up so they know how to execute the booth model, they know how to execute the raffle model, they know how to execute all that stuff, and we put them through the training to be able to handle it. Does that make sense? So if you only got you got to multiply you, right? So you got to figure out how to bring some people into the fold and help them with that. Do I forgive their tuition for being part of the school advisory team? No, I do not. Do I do special things for them all the time and make them really feel welcome and make them really feel part of the? Absolutely, right? So be thoughtful. Think about that. Happy to drill deeper too, Kyle. Over time, we need to move on to the next topic, but pop a comment in there. But this is a test of leadership, not a test of how hard you can work. Does that make sense? You might have to do some things. You might have to hustle, right? But this is about leveraging your hustle. Right? So I hope that's helpful. I hope it's useful. Give me some feedback on that, and we'll walk through some more if we need to. Okay. So number next, in 4 minutes or less. I'm sorry, guys. We'll go quickly. Number next is I have to make sure that I have all my online funnel ready to go. Right? Again, lots of the people who get your enrollment cards, lots of the people who get your kick or treat cards, lots of the people who go to the pumpkin patch and get the thing stuffed in their bag. Lots of those people are just going to go online to look you up, right? Lots of them are not going to call directly. They're going to go look for you online. So you've got to make sure that the online funnel is up to par. As we've talked about many, many, many times, this is part of our core competency here at Atlas. But you want to be driving traffic to a lead funnel site that has a low barrier of entry offer that captures everybody who's even a little bit interested. I recommend that it is not an offer for lessons, but that it is an offer for something less than having to make a yes, I want to try martial arts decision. Then we take them to a success page where we offer them lessons. and they can then say yes to that as well if they choose. Does that make sense? And then third, we can drive them to a place where they actually make a sale, right? And then, as you well know, all the data from that lead magnet, from that lead capture mechanism, drops into the database. We're automatically emailing them, text messaging them, calling them, mailing them, things like that. And then the visitor goes off to that offer page where then, again, as I described, we're then setting an appointment or making a sale, right? So I hope that makes sense. We do have to go kind of quickly, but this is part of our core competency here. This is part of what we help schools. We set it up for them in many cases, but we also help them build out and optimize over time, right? So you've got to make sure that you've got these back-end digital systems ready to go to capture and bring those leads through the funnel, right? And then obviously through that funnel process, I'm talking about, email, text messages, sending them blog posts, videos, testimonials, personal phone calls, letters, videos, anything you can possibly imagine. But we have to make sure that we have that funnel ready to execute, right? And I can certainly help. I can show you how to do that through Atlas Software. You have to have automated mechanisms and some manual mechanisms to make this work really well. Okay, so makes sense. And again, as I described, my preferred platform to do all this stuff is Atlas Software. If you're an Atlas Software user and you need help with this, give our team here a call. If you're not an Atlas Software user yet, and these are the types of things that you want to be thoughtful about, give us a buzz here, and go to atlasmarshallsoftware.com and you can figure out, you can see how to get started there. So here were the results from 19. Again, just one location, right? I segmented everything out to one location. This location was the third most productive location, right? Second or third most productive location, only by a few leads, one way or another. So it's something that in a regular demographic, a typical suburban, demographic, we accomplished there. Number one, we did 2 different haunted houses, one really big one, and that was the far bulk of those 600 leads, one smaller one. And we did it for 2 weekends, 2 separate teams. At a haunted house, people stand in line for a very long time, right? So our booth was set up right in front of the building, right in front of the place, where you enter. So we literally, sorry, I got a fire truck. So we literally captured almost every person that came through, right? So the spin wheel booth model works really, really well for that. They fill the form out in order to spin the wheel. You're going to get almost everybody. You're going to get tons of the people, a high percentage of the people who go through the funnel. We did 9 pumpkin patches on 3 separate weekends, not 9 at one time, but different times. We moved those teams around, and that generated for us 473 leads. In 3 or 4 of those pumpkin patches, we put the booth there as well, right? Just the flyer thing is meh, but having the booth there really works well, right? So be thoughtful about that. We participated with 2 elementary school fall festivals. They had like a little carnival where you could sponsor a game. People could come play the game. They pay tickets to play the game, and they buy tickets at the front desk. We did the fundraiser model there and the booth spin wheel model, and that was 172 leads. 6 external trunk or treats, some of them at elementary schools, a couple churches. A couple of them were the same places that had the pumpkin patch, right? So same relationship, right? Leverage the same relationship there. And that was 164 leads. And again, same model. We sponsored a trunk, right? We put the vehicle, the school's vehicle there. In some cases for after school programs, you have the big van. You could really do cool stuff with that, right? So we sponsored a trunk, but then also set the booth up outside the trunk, right? So same thing, collecting leads, move them right along. And again, as a trunk or treat works, almost everybody goes to almost all of them, right? So it's really, really high level, really works great. We participated with 4 costume shops, 1 spirit store, 1 Party Plus, and then 2 other like smaller places, right? And that was 118 leads. The Buddy Week promotion, the Kicktoberfest, when we had all of the referrals that came in, that was 64 guests that came. Halloween safety flyers. Now this one worked particularly well that year, because we were able to get a couple of elementary schools, 2 or 3, if I recall, at least 2, to do the flyer drop for us, to do the safety tool flyer drop for us. So that was a lot. That was, a couple thousand flyers all at once, right? So that worked particularly well that year. The kick or treat cards, these little guys, got us 37 leads, 37 opt-ins and leads. Our internal trunk or treat was 26, and the parents' night out got 22 buddies, 22 friends to come. So 1742 total. Does that make sense? So, we've met over the years, and Kyle, I have to remember Kyle. Now I'm embarrassed. I don't remember Kyle. I'm going to have to remember. I'll figure it out. Does that make sense? So, deep breath. We're 5 minutes past our time. If you do have any lingering questions or comments or anything like that we should talk through, please feel free to pop them in the comment section. I'll take a look at this after our time today and reply to you directly. Again, our mission here at Atlas Software is to make sure that people have strategies and tactics, but also the tools to help execute these things, right? So as we've described before, for the next 300 clients in this COVID recovery package, for the next 300 folks who kind of join the Atlas team, they're going to get the full Atlas software suite. They're going to get that complete lead generation website completely free. They're going to get the online marketing catalog that we described in the Biz Academy completely free. They're going to get access to all of the social media content and promotions that we've produced there completely free. They're going to get the after-school program, the completely done sort of the turnkey kind of A to Z after-school facilitation program, also completely free. And just give my team a call here, right? At 1-800-275-1600. We're going to save you a ton of money, and we're going to help you generate a lot of prospects and a lot of enrollments over the next couple of months. So, again, any questions? I'm so sorry that I ran a little bit over. I think Kyle's question was well worth taking the time for. Many schools feel like they're in a scenario where they're the chief cook and bottle washer. They're the only one who can execute this stuff, right? And I forgot to switch back to the right camera. So you missed the last two slides. There was the last slide. It was just all the numbers. Sorry, you didn't miss much. So Kyle's question was really kind of poignant and critical in that many school operators feel the same way. They feel like you're the only one who can do anything. And I feel you, right? I feel where you're coming from. But you've got to get good at leveraging that. You've got to get good at building a team. In some cases, it has to be volunteers. If you can't pay a bunch of people, you got to figure out how to not pay them, right? When you start working with other local businesses, you'll find resources there as well. Frankly, I've worked with other martial arts schools to help execute these things. I have one location that's on this side of a river, right? And all of the people who come to this school live on this side of the river, right? Almost nobody drives that way across the river after 5 o'clock, after rush hour traffic. But the big movie theater is on this side of the river. So I've teamed up many, many, many times with other martial arts school operators on this side of the river to help execute like a movie release, like a martial arts movie release or something like that. And we just split the leads up. All the leads over there, I get. All the leads over here, you get. We'll split up the workload, right? Things like that. So there are lots of resources. Sometimes when you feel like you don't have resources is when you have to be the most resourceful, right? And sort of find the blood in the stone. And there is some, right? So gather together some people who can help you with this. Get them trained on the model, and we'll go from there. Go back to the summer 2021 marketing conference that we did, the marketing webinar that we did, and we described the booth model in granular detail there, how to execute it really well. And we described the movie theater model really well, how to execute it well. Get those two things down, and this all becomes perfunctory pretty quickly, right? Okay, good. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate the time. Thank you, Kyle, for your magnanimousness, so that I'm not embarrassed. I can't exactly put the face with the name. I think if I saw the face, it would be helpful. But I appreciate your letting me off the hook on that one. Thank you guys again so much for the time. I really appreciate it. Anything else I can do, please feel free to add a comment. If you want the slides, pop your email address in there. I'll have my team send that to you, and we'll speak again next month. Okay, thanks, everybody. Speak soon. Okay, now how do I... If I do this...